Welcome to your deep dive. So today we're looking at the silent thief, how to stop osteoporosis before it steals your strength.
Ooh.
And it sounds like you're really thinking ahead, about staying strong and independent
Yes.
as you get older, which is fantastic. And this book seems like a really in-depth guide.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I think what we want to do today is really kind of extract the core insights from it.
Okay.
Try and understand the science behind, like, why do our bones get weaker?
Yeah.
And then most importantly, like, what can we do? What are the steps that we can take?
Absolutely. Right.
Right.
I think one of the things that really struck me right off the bat was how the book frames this whole issue.
Yeah.
It calls it, this stealthy crisis, which I think is really apt because bone loss is so silent.
It is. It is.
And it throws out the statistic that by the age of 50, 1 in 2 women will experience a fracture
Right.
due to osteoporosis,
Right.
which is huge.
Yeah.
But then very quickly it shifts to this empowering message, which is, okay, that doesn't have to be you.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be your story.
That's such a good point because, we're sort of hit with the kind of the scary statistic.
Right.
But then, thankfully, it doesn't leave us there.
Exactly.
It gives us like, okay, here's what you can do about it.
Yeah.
And I like how it kind of establishes, okay, we reach peak bone mass
Yeah.
roughly around 30.
Yes.
So it's like everything after that is about
Preservation.
Yeah. It really changes how you view those,
Exactly.
the years that follow. And then also I found it interesting how the author touches upon those societal pressures that we have.
Absolutely.
Especially for women, but, I think men as well.
Yeah.
Things like dieting.
Yes.
Too restrictive.
Yeah.
Or, maybe not doing certain exercises that are beneficial for our bone health.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I feel like we're going to uncover some really interesting ways to counteract those trends.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it starts with understanding the basic science of what's actually happening within our bones.
Yes.
Because a lot of people think, okay, bone, it's just this hard framework.
Right.
It's static.
Yeah.
Right. But the book does a great job of explaining that actually bone is a living, dynamic tissue.
Okay. So it's not just like you build it up.
Yeah.
And it's done. It's an ongoing
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. Because it's like a renewal.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's constantly being remodeled. So think of it like there's construction and renovation happening within us all the time.
Okay. Interesting. So tell me more about that, this whole remodeling idea.
Yeah. So basically, you have these cells called osteoblasts.
Right.
Which are responsible for building new bone.
Okay.
And then you have osteoclasts, and these are the cells that break down older damaged bone. And this constant sort of cycle is vital for maintaining healthy and strong bones.
Okay.
And the key shift that the book emphasizes, particularly for women, is after menopause, when estrogen levels begin to decline.
Right.
Because estrogen, the book describes it like the foreman.
Right.
It's sort of overseeing.
It's kind of the boss.
It's the boss of this whole bone building project, right?
Right.
It plays a huge role in promoting the activity of osteoblasts.
Okay.
But when estrogen levels decrease, things get a little out of whack.
Right.
The osteoclasts, those cells that break down bone, become more active than the osteoblasts.
Right.
So over time, you start to lose bone mass.
Yeah.
And the image the book uses, it talks about bones becoming like Swiss cheese with all these holes.
Yeah. I thought that was such a good visual to really kind of...
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It makes it very clear.
Okay. So what's happening?
Exactly.
And it clearly differentiates between osteopenia and osteoporosis.
Yeah.
Based on the T-scores from bone density scans. So for anybody listening, osteopenia is when your T-score falls between -1 or -2.5.
Right.
And then osteoporosis is when it's -2.5.
Yeah.
Or lower.
Yeah.
So, and then the book makes this point about like the consequences of these fractures are really serious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a hip fracture for a woman over 50, the book says there's a 20% risk of death within the following year.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not just about the recovery.
Right.
It can be life-threatening.
It is. It's a major health event.
And then spinal fractures, too.
Yeah.
Loss of height, that hunched posture.
Right. Yeah.
Quality of life goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the good news is that early bone loss, so that osteopenia stage, can be reversed.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to be proactive.
Yeah, that's great. That's reassuring
Absolutely.
that it's not, a
Exactly.
one-way street.
Exactly.
So,
So it talks about some risk factors.
yeah, let's talk about the risk factors. So,
Yeah.
so who's at risk?
It's not just one type of person.
Okay.
Right. It can affect
Okay.
people of all fitness levels,
Okay.
all body types.
Okay, so it's really anyone.
Yeah, but there are certain factors that can increase your risk.
Okay.
Family history, for example.
Right.
If you have a parent or sibling who had a hip fracture,
Okay.
that actually doubles your risk,
Wow. Yeah.
which I found kind of surprising.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then also having a small, petite frame,
Right. Yeah.
simply because you start with less bone mass to begin with.
Right. Makes sense.
And it's also important to be mindful of certain medications that we might be taking regularly.
Okay. Like what?
Things like antidepressants, steroids, some acid reflux medications.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can actually negatively impact bone density over time.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that. So that's something to definitely be aware of.
Absolutely. It's worth having a conversation with your doctor if you're, on any of those medications long term.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. And there's also a simple self-assessment that the book talks about.
Oh, yeah. The wall test?
Yeah.
Stand with your back against the wall.
Right.
And see if the back of your head touches it.
Right.
If it doesn't.
Yeah.
If there's a gap,
Right.
that might be a sign of what it calls Dowager's hump, which is basically
Right.
spinal compression fractures.
Right.
It can be addressed, so
Yeah.
don't panic, but it's a good reminder to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that it kind of emphasizes that, while genetics might play a role, it's really lifestyle. That's
Exactly.
the key, the trigger.
Exactly.
So we can do something about it.
Exactly. It's empowering.
Yeah. So let's get into that. Let's get into it.
What can we actually do? So what are some of the things that the books suggests?
So it dives deep into nutrition, right?
Yeah, let's talk about nutrition.
It's got this whole section called Nutrition Hacks for Ironclad Bones.
Okay.
And right away, it's very clear that it's not just about calcium.
Okay.
It's about a range of nutrients.
Okay.
And it highlights a few as MVPs.
Okay, who are the MVPs?
So vitamin K2.
Right.
I found this one really fascinating.
Okay.
It's crucial for directing calcium into your bones
Okay.
and keeping it out of your arteries.
So it's like the traffic.
Exactly.
It's a traffic cop.
It's a good way to
Make sure it goes where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So good sources for vitamin K2, natto, a fermented soybean product,
Okay.
grass-fed butter,
Okay.
and then magnesium.
Okay.
The book says that something like 50% of women
Wow.
might be deficient in magnesium.
Yeah, and this is really important because it's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body,
Oh, wow.
including the ones that are involved in bone formation.
Okay.
So good sources, dark chocolate,
Oh, right.
pumpkin seeds,
Okay.
and then, of course, protein.
Right.
You need protein to build that collagen matrix of your bones.
Right, because it's not just
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Everything.
It's not just about the minerals. You
Yeah.
need that protein framework as well.
Okay.
And the book recommends about 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight.
Okay, so it's painting this picture of a very balanced,
Yes.
plate.
Exactly. It talks about the bone building plate.
Okay.
Half of it should be non-starchy vegetables.
Okay, so like kale, broccoli.
Exactly. Kale, broccoli, spinach, all those good things.
Okay.
A quarter of it should be lean protein,
Okay.
like salmon, lentils, chicken breast.
Yeah.
A quarter of it, complex carbohydrates.
Okay.
So things like sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa,
Okay.
and then a fat thumb, it calls it,
Okay.
of healthy fats.
Okay, so like avocado.
Avocado, olive oil, nuts, and seeds.
Okay.
So it's really debunking that myth that you have to avoid fats for bone health.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's good that we're moving away from that kind of
Absolutely.
thinking. Yeah. Fat is important.
Yeah, it's an important part of a healthy diet.
Exactly.
So,
Um,
and it gives a practical tip, which I thought was great.
okay, what's that?
It says instead of having cereal in the morning,
Yeah.
try a bone broth breakfast scramble,
Okay.
eggs, spinach, turmeric,
Okay.
and a little bit of bone broth in there.
Okay.
So it's quick, it's nutrient dense, it's delicious.
That's a great idea. Okay, so we've talked about nutrition. Now, obviously, movement's a big one.
Absolutely. This is a key one.
Okay.
And the book is very clear. Move it or lose it
Right.
when it comes to your bones.
Okay, so what kind of movement?
Weight-bearing exercise.
Right.
So things that, your bones and muscles work against gravity,
Okay.
resistance training,
Okay.
working against weights, resistance bands.
Okay.
Those are vital for stimulating new bone growth.
Okay.
It even says that just walking alone might not be enough.
Really?
Yeah, you need that impact, that resistance.
Okay.
And it outlines this really easy-to-follow 10-minute routine.
Okay.
It's called the 10-minute routine.
What's in the 10-minute routine?
So one of the exercises is called stomp and shout.
Oh.
You basically jump off of a low step,
Yeah.
like 6 inches or so,
Right.
and you land with a firm landing.
Go here.
This is designed to create impact through the hips,
Okay.
which are, as we know, a common site
Right.
for fractures.
Yeah.
Another exercise is the farmer's carry.
Okay.
This is where you hold heavy items, it could be groceries, dumbbells,
Okay.
and you walk for a short period.
Okay.
This actually highlights the connection between your grip strength and your bone strength,
Oh, interesting.
which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
And then wall push-ups.
Okay.
Great for wrist health and upper body strength.
Yeah.
So it's really showing that, you don't have to spend hours in the gym
Right.
to do something good for your bones.
Yeah.
And lifting weights, it's not just about building muscle.
Right.
It's a direct way to strengthen your bones.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a double win.
Exactly.
Okay. So, and now the book talks a lot about hormones.
Absolutely. Hormones are a huge part of this,
Okay.
and especially estrogen.
Okay.
And it uses this beautiful analogy. It compares your hormones
Yeah.
to a symphony orchestra.
Okay.
And estrogen is the conductor,
Okay.
making sure everything's in harmony.
Right.
Balance between bone building and a bone breakdown,
Okay.
but then menopause hits.
Right.
And that's like a major disruption.
So it's like the conductor
Exactly.
has left the building.
Yeah, the conductor's gone, and everyone's playing their own tune.
Yeah. And things are getting a little
It's not harmonious anymore.
out of control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So during menopause, as estrogen levels decline, those osteoclasts, remember, the bone breakers,
Right.
they become more active,
Okay.
and you can have accelerated bone loss
Okay.
up to 2-3% per year.
Wow.
Yeah, the book compares it to losing the thickness of a credit card
Every year.
every year
Wow. Okay.
from your bones.
That's a powerful visual.
Yeah, it really highlights how silent it can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the book doesn't leave you there.
Okay. Good.
It talks about things you can do.
Okay.
Phytoestrogens, for example.
Okay.
These are plant compounds
All right.
that can mimic some of estrogen's protective effects.
Right.
So flax seeds, soy, lentils,
Okay.
good sources of phytoestrogens.
Okay. Great.
Strength training.
Yeah.
This is really important. It helps boost testosterone levels, which, contrary to popular belief, women have and need testosterone.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
It's important for bone health.
Okay.
And then stress,
Right.
chronic stress.
Yeah.
It leads to elevated levels of cortisol,
Right.
which the book calls the bone-eating hormone.
Yeah. I've heard that before. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So what can we do about stress?
Meditation,
Okay.
just 5 minutes a day,
Right.
can make a big difference.
Okay.
And it also gives this tip, the menopause moonwalk.
Okay.
10 minutes of yoga poses, like bridge pose, legs up the wall before bed,
Okay.
and maybe have a little magnesium-rich snack.
Like the dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate almond. So it's about supporting hormone balance and relaxation.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then it goes into this interesting chapter, what you might not be hearing from your doctor.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So screenings and supplements. So DEXA stands.
Yeah.
Those are the standard for measuring bone density.
Right.
But the book makes this really important point that your T-score,
Right.
it's not a fixed outcome.
Right.
It's not set in stone.
Yeah.
You can improve it even later in life.
That's so important for people to hear.
Yeah.
That it's not.
It's not a life
It's
sentence.
not a done deal. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And then it talks about calcium supplements.
Yeah.
So it says taking calcium supplements alone without considering other nutrients might not be as effective.
Okay.
And it could actually have some risks.
Okay.
Calcium buildup in the arteries, for example.
Right. Yeah. So it's again, it's about that balance.
Exactly. You need vitamin K2
Right.
to make sure that calcium
Goes to the right place.
goes to the right place.
Yeah.
And it gives some what it calls screening hacks.
Okay. I like that.
So if you're getting DEXA scans, make sure they're done at the same clinic
Okay.
with the same machine each time.
Right. For consistency.
For consistency.
Okay.
Ask your doctor for a FRAX tool assessment.
What's that?
So it's an online tool
Okay.
that helps predict your 10-year risk of fractures.
Okay.
And it takes into account all sorts of factors, not just bone density.
Right.
And then it also says, check your homocysteine levels.
Okay.
This is through a blood test.
Okay.
High homocysteine levels are linked to brittle bones,
Really?
but you can lower them with B vitamins.
Yeah.
So it gives a supplement cocktail recommendation.
Okay.
500 milligrams of calcium, 1,000 IU of vitamin D, and 90 micrograms of vitamin K2.
Okay.
All taken together with dinner.
Okay. Why dinner?
Why dinner? Well, because the fats in your meal can enhance absorption of vitamin D and K2.
Oh, okay.
And also because a lot of bone remodeling happens while you're sleeping.
Right.
So it's all about timing and being strategic.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love how the book then kind of shifts to really emphasizing the small things you can do.
Yes, the small, consistent actions.
Yeah.
It calls it tiny habits, massive results.
Yeah.
And it outlines a daily playbook
Okay, I like that.
with morning, afternoon, and nighttime ritual.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through them.
Okay, so morning ritual. This should take about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do a sun salute.
Okay.
10 minutes of sunlight exposure.
Okay.
Initially without sunscreen
Right, to get the vitamin D.
to maximize vitamin D production.
Okay.
And then have some bone broth coffee.
Okay.
Just mix a scoop of collagen peptides
Okay.
into your coffee.
Okay.
Collagen is the glue that holds your bones together.
Right. Okay, that's a good idea.
Afternoon power-up,
Okay.
desk stomps.
Okay.
Every hour, get up, stomp your feet
Okay.
20 times.
Okay.
Stimulates bone growth in your lower body.
Okay.
And then snack smart.
Okay, like what?
Instead of chips, have some kale chips with hummus.
Okay, good source of calcium.
Calcium, protein,
Okay.
nighttime wind down,
Yeah.
magnesium foot soak
Okay.
with Epsom salts.
Okay.
And then spend a few minutes with a gratitude journal.
Okay.
Reduce stress, good for your bones.
Right. It all connects.
It all connects.
Yeah. And it gives this great tip, the 2-second rule.
Oh, yeah, I love this one.
Whenever you're tempted to skip a healthy action,
Yeah.
commit to doing it for just 2 seconds.
Yeah, just get started.
Yeah.
And then the momentum builds.
Right. Yeah, I can see how that works.
It's a great tip.
Yeah. So, and I think the book concludes with this really, really empowering message.
It does.
It's like osteoporosis is not inevitable.
Exactly.
It's something we can fight back against.
Absolutely. It's a challenge, not a sentence.
Yeah. And it suggests this 30-day bone rebellion challenge, which I love the name.
Oh, it's so catchy.
Yeah. So tell me about the challenge.
Okay, so week 1.
Okay.
Add 1 bone-building food to your diet every day.
Okay. So like
Sardines,
okay.
tahini,
Okay.
things like that. Okay.
Week 2,
Yeah.
stomp or jump
Okay.
for 2 minutes every morning.
Okay.
Week 3,
Yeah.
test your grip strength daily.
Okay.
Aim for improvement.
Okay.
Week 4, share a tip from the book with a friend.
That's a good one.
Spread the knowledge.
Yeah.
Build a community.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like starting a movement,
Exactly.
a bone rebellion.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that kind of final rallying cry that your bones are your legacy.
Yes.
And they deserve protection.
They do. They really do.
Yeah. It's a nice way to end it, you know.
Yeah.
On a positive, proactive
Exactly.
note.
It's empowering.
So I think we've really, we've gone deep into the book,
We have.
but it's so clear that, this book, it's like a really actionable guide.
It is.